Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I hope everyone had a fabulous day. We had great weather here in Georgia, and we can see that fall is starting to come in. And after the very hot summer, we are okay with that. So I'm glad you joined me tonight. I am Atanya Jean Funny, your audacious advocate, and I use my love for learning and passion for community engagement to empower our families. And every once in a while, things don't go as planned, but that's okay. So, of course, we were supposed to have our fabulous superintendent, Dr. Anthony Smith, on us tonight, and I got word that he wasn't feeling well. So I said, no problem. We rescheduled that conversation for November the 1st. And I called my village and I said, ladies, we have something else to talk about, still in the education realm. And so I have some ladies that have joined me tonight to have a community conversation about why it's important for parents to be involved and maybe some of the barriers that we can work on to make sure that parents feel welcomed and involved in, just different types of things. So I actually have I'm going to call us, we're all teacher parents. So we have all taught in the public school system, and we also have children currently in the public school system. So I'm going to start with Miss April Wilson and allow her to introduce herself.
And like Miss Funny said, I am a parent and a teacher. I live here in Clayton County. I teach in my community, and I think that's what really drove me to teaching is because I wanted to be a part of my community and give back to my community. So I am teaching in my community. I know my parents, and it's very close knit. So um, I like I said, I'm April Wilson.
And I'm going to bring myself back. So, April, I want you to share with me just a couple. We're going to have a more robust discussion, but let's just start off for our elementary school parents, right? Give me like three pointers advice that you would give them right now as we begin this school year. Maybe things haven't been going as they expected, especially with our little ones. What advice would you give them right now?
I think one thing that parents need to remember is that kindergarten through first grade, through second grade, actually, are the most crucial years of a child's school time. That is when the foundation is set. Many times parents think that kindergarten is playtime, that they're playing, but kindergarten is when the foundation is set. Actually, our kindergartens are expected to be reading when they leave kindergarten. So, in order for a K through 2 student to be successful, there has to be a relationship between the parent and the teacher. And there's this, I call it a team effort. There's got to be a team between the parent and the teacher so that the student knows that mom and dad and my teacher and my family are all working together to ensure that I am successful in school. So that is the key. One key thing is that home and school work together as a team. The second thing I would say is just to support the child with homework, support them in ensuring, especially that they are reading each night, model reading, let them see you reading. It may be the newspaper, it may be a piece of mail, but let them see that we all read in every day, and reading is very important to our everyday lives. And I guess I would say the third thing would be to ensure that our students are getting enough rest. I know that we
Hmm.
have a lot going on in our lives. We have to make sure that they're getting that sleep at night, that they're going to bed by 8 or 9 o'clock. They're not getting up, turning the TV on, or playing with video games, that they are getting a good night's sleep. So I would think
Oh,
those are three key things.
that's good. That's good, especially about that sleep. Um, I'm gonna bring our one of our other ladies to the stage. All right, we have Miss Sawana Janvier, who is a former middle school teacher and a mother of three. And please go ahead and introduce yourself.
I think you said it all. That's really it.
And you have a special story because you know, you had to really be involved as you transition careers, right?
Yeah, that was a difficult process in transitioning from being really hands on to kind of accepting help and having to let the kids be their own advocate for themselves. So
Okay, we want to talk about that more. And we have another young lady. Please go ahead and introduce yourself, Alita. You're muted.
Yes.
There you
Hello,
go.
everybody. How you doing?
Good.
Good. My name is Alita Roundtree, and I'm happy to be here today. I do recognize a face on here, so I'm excited to be here tonight.
And Alita, tell us a little bit like what do you do? Because the other three ladies, we were all teachers at one time or currently teaching, and all have school age kids. Tell me about you.
Yes. So, since my early 20s, I have worked as a medical assistant in the medical field, as a pediatric back office medical assistant. And 2011, I went back to school for my bachelor's and um, graduated with my bachelor's degree. I've been in the mental health field ever since. Um, I'm currently in school for mental health counseling at Liberty University. This is my second year of my master's. And I work with the autistic population where I assist them and in meeting those targets in their behavior plans and, just helping to reduce some of those behaviors that have been noticed by family members or peers in the school settings. And so and I'm a community advocate. I mentor youth in the community. um, I'm a grandmother. I have 4 kids myself, but 2 of them are adults, so I have 2 school-age children, plus I'm raising a grandson who I'm assisting my son with, because all 3 of my grandsons are autistic. And so I took the oldest one off their hands to help relieve that stress and help him as much as possible and assist with the other ones as well.
Awesome.
Hmm.
So you have a lot of information and insight.
Yes.
So I had asked Miss Wilson, I call you April, to talk about some advice for our parents with younger children. And one of the things that she brought up was about making sure that the kids get enough sleep. Now I'm gonna push back April a little bit because I think for elementary, I'm gonna say 9 o'clock is too late. I think they should already be in bed somewhere like 7:30. Because those little ones, woo goodness, that's a lot of energy there. But that is so important that they get that sleep that they need. And Sawana, you was talking about and one of our Facebook guests was saying accepting help. So I know even for us as we were teachers and parents, definitely accepting that help from others. But we have since we're all on here, I want to start with the question of what barriers do you see in parents being involved in their child's education or even like coming into the school building?
As a current teacher, I can say some of the barriers are, our lives are so busy and full now.
Mhm.
A lot of, parents are working, some are working maybe 2 jobs. So it's hard to carve that time out. I know that when I need to conference with the parent, I'll say, hey, what time do you go to lunch? Can you take a break? Can we talk then? And I'll call you. We're doing a lot of video conferencing, phone conferencing. And I'll tell you, Miss Roundtree and I, we have a special relationship because two of her children came through our school, and
Awesome.
her grandson is in our school now. So we've built a little special bond. And her daughter is actually one of my dear students. So
Oh,
I
that's
can tell you,
wonderful.
yeah.
Yes.
So this just
Yes.
came
And
full.
you didn't even know she was going to be on
No,
tonight.
Yes.
sure
Yes.
didn't. So, when I talk about home and school working together, I
Mhm.
think Ms. Roundtree will agree, we
Yes.
came full circle. We all
Yes.
worked together for the best or
Yes.
betterment of her daughter.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Most definite.
Yes. So, but yeah, I think that's one of the barriers. It's just, we have such busy lives, but we have to sometimes get creative on how we communicate in ways that we can communicate.
And I think
Human-
COVID really
Mhm.
taught us a lot
Yes.
because
Oh, yeah.
before we were just like, well, when can the parent come in the building? When can the
Mhm.
parent come in the building? Now we find out that they don't have to come in the building.
Well,
They just need to
right,
be accessible.
right. But communication is key. And I'm glad you brought that point up about coming in the building. Now, COVID is over. We're
Mhm.
trying to get back to normal, but then there's something else that has popped up. We've got to talk about security in the building, making
Yes.
sure our buildings are secure.
Mhm.
I can tell you one of my duties in the morning is to just stand at the door, greet the children, make sure they get inside, greet the parents, find out, who they're there to see, call the correct person to meet them, just keeping things in order, so that in knowing who's coming in, who's leaving out. And
Yeah.
I mean, we have to consider security also in our building.
Yes.
So it's maybe even better now that we have video conferencing and things like that.
Yes, yes, yes. And that helps the parent too, because if you're working downtown and you need to have a conference with the teacher, that's going to be difficult. You're either going to have to take off from work,
Mhm.
um, or you're not going to be able to make that meeting. So having video conferencing, phone conferencing, that has worked out tremendously.
Absolutely. So, Sawana, when you were teaching middle school, what were because that middle school age is right between sometimes they want to be babies and sometimes they want to be 35. So, how were you able to manage that and communicate with parents and things like that? And before you answer, I am going to brag on you a little bit. um yes, I'm going to brag on you because you, what we would say, did the darn thing when it came to those science your science class for 8th grade middle school. So you was able to really be productive with those students. No one can take that away from you. So how did you manage that?
I think, so one of the things that teaching eighth grade, they are at that point where they're on the cusp of high school, and they're more outspoken about the things that they are doing and they want and they need. And I think one of the things that I tried to focus on was setting expectations, because it's like when you know what to expect, then there's no surprise. But then also it helps to be consistent when you set the expectations. So I think that was one of my core focuses. I try to utilize as much technology as possible as far as like communicating with parents and having an open space for them to communicate with me. At that time, I
And that
utilized,
was before COVID.
yeah, at that time I utilized Google Classroom quite a bit. And it kind of almost done like a flip classroom where we were using the computers mostly almost every day. And so just teaching them how to use it as opposed to what they think Google is looking up different, things like that, teaching them how to use the PowerPoint, the Excel and stuff like that to create the different reports for some of the things we did in science. So I think, and it just setting the expectation, being consistent with what the expectation was. So you didn't have, any surprise about what was happening within the next week and so forth, as far as assessments and things of that nature. And just really involving the student in that process. When we talk about, their grades or what was happening with their grades, we're really like having those data talks and talk about it. Then you're charting that, you're putting the information in because ultimately you're responsible, for that. And so I think giving them that autonomy at that point where it's like you're getting ready to go into high school and how to kind of be prepared for that and just setting an expectation and just using the technology as much as possible to communicate with parents, because it's like everybody's walking around with that supercomputer in their pocket, in their pocketbook. And so utilizing that in the best way that I could with the technology and so forth. So.
And you know what? The same things that you brought up far as setting expectations and being consistent, I think we need to do that as parents also. So what I noticed with my two that I think like growing up that, and I guess it's because maybe our parents set a set of expectations, and I didn't really realize it because you kind of just grow up that way. And so I noticed with my two, I had to tell them what is the expectation of their education in our house. Like, because we are aware of the ability level of our kids, like I had to let them know that the expectation is 70 is not passing in my house. It's not passing. I didn't realize I had to say that. But I think parents need to understand, well, what is the expectations? You look at your child, if you know that there's, no learning disabilities or things like that. In some households, 70 may be great. But we have to all as parents look at the expectations and say, we know you can do better. And if you're not, what type of resources are out there to help you? Now, I do want to share my story. I share it often because I want to show parents that we don't always have all the answers, but we can use the resources around us. So my husband and I realized that when our son was in second grade, that he could read, but he had comprehension issues when he brought home a quiz and had missed every question on the quiz, and it was multiple choice. So at that point, we were like, oh my goodness, what is going on here? So I didn't have a problem. Like I went to the school and said, test my son for everything. Everything. At the time, they were not testing for dyslexia, because I asked for that test too. But I do know that if it's not in the schools now, it's coming. So now it's a state law that the schools will test for that. But they did all the tests and said, no, he's fine. So at that point, we sought out a tutoring service and things like that. But we had to sit down at the kitchen table with our son every day, almost every day, at least 4 to 5 times a week, and work with him with his reading and reading comprehension. And so what I want to tell parents, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of tears that was shed by his dad. No, there was a lot of tears shed, and we let him cry it out, and we didn't let him get up, and he cried it out. And then when he finished crying, he finished the assignment. And we did that for 2 years to get him where he needed to be. So for parents, like, don't give up. If you see that there's a deficiency, then that's the time when we say you got to now dig in, So Ms. Roundtree, is there anything you would like to add with the type of work that you do?
Yes, I want to say consistency is the key. I know with my grandson, when I first asked my son, if I could get him and work with him, there was some delay. He's always been very social. His social skills was not all the way developed because, I mean, he would communicate with us, but just being out in social settings, he was still kind of closed. But since I've gotten him, I know last year he started kindergarten, and up until, I mean, the whole year, really, it was hard for me to get him to sit down and do homework. He had never been to pre-K, really didn't have the social skills, and just trying to get him to engage in homework was a task for me. I cried all last year. Um, and I mean, he would come home and I would say, Amari, let's sit down, do homework. And oh my God, it was a mess. And so I continued just being consistent. So I added, like rewards and um, reinforcers to help him get to the point where he would be willing to at least attempt, even if he attempted to write a letter, I would praise him for that. So where he is now, he comes home now and he's like, Grandma, I got homework. And so I've seen progress over the summer, just since last year working with him, and just over the summer working with him. I've seen change in the effort he's making to get his work done. And so it has been a challenge over the years, even with, my 13 and 11-year-old, because they got behind in reading. And so I had to, continue taking them to the library, check out books. Let's work on your reading level, because helping them to stay up to their grade level or above is super important, especially as, many counties are more advanced than our county. So you have kids on different levels. And so, I tell my kids, you have to engage in books and you have to be consistent in order to become better readers and improve
Oh,
your
in our library system, look, I just had a whole community conversation. There is so many resources.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, even to the point where you can check out books that they will read it to you.
Yeah.
Even for the little ones, April, you was talking about reading at night. The library has books that will read a bedtime story
Yeah.
to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of resources out there. Can you all tell me now, in our house, our kids are not allowed to have their cell phones during school hours. They only get their cell phones now on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel cell phones is helping or hindering our kids, and what advice would you have for parents when it comes to cell phones?
For me,
Anybody can take it.
yes. So I have a 13-year-old who has a phone. My 11-year-old daughter does not have a phone. Um, my 13-year-old son has a phone, and I am big on, them not having a phone at school. I feel like if the teachers engage with them with all this technology going on, social media, sometimes you have teachers who engage students in this social media stuff. So when the teacher engages, it creates more of a distraction with the students. It's like giving them permission to use their phones, giving them permission to be on social media doing learning, things like that. Um, I don't approve of phones being in the classroom setting. And I think the school should restrict. I know at my kids' school, they have to drop the phones off in the morning and get them at the end of the day.
Mm.
Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not, because one time they had an airdrop where somebody dropped, I'm gonna shoot up the school. So everybody panicked. In a crisis situation, it may be bad, but then again, you got those situations where it's a distraction in the classroom, which can cause a lot of chaos. I mean, kids can
I
get to fighting just because they got a cell phone and
Yeah.
stuff in the school. So
I would like the parents to do a little experiment and give their kids the cell phone and then have a conversation with them while they're on the cell phone, so that the parents can realize that they do not hear a word that's being said when they're on the cell phone. So
Mhm.
just imagine if they are in class and they're on their phone, they are not hearing the teacher or whatever the lesson that's going on. So, if they just did that experiment, you would be able to tell. I mean, even when we're on the cell phone and if our spouse is saying something to us, I don't hear it, So, it's good to have it in cases of security, but if I just feel like the parents sometimes maybe need to give teachers a little grace if they call and they say your child is on the phone during class, that is really, it may be hindering their learning. April, did you want to add to that?
Oh, I was just going to add, and you all did touch on that. Even some of our younger babies, I'm in a K through 2 school. Some of them do bring cell phones with them. They'll have them in their, backpack, and it's more so for security,
Hmm.
in case you get, something happens. And
Yeah.
we'll see more of that when something happens in the world, some type of security issue. We'll see people, more parents drop those cell phones in the backpack. They just want to be able to reach out to their baby if something happens sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna say just kind of one. I don't know if that experiment will work because the kids are not listening to you without the cell phone. I don't know. I experienced that. So I mean, the cell phone probably makes it magnifies it, but they're not hearing me without the cell phone. But I've kind of had like a twofold experience in that as a parent and as an educator. So one of the things that I opted to do or tried to do when I was teaching was I bought like the shoe organizer and power strips, and I was like, "Hey, you can charge your phone, but if you put it in here, can't take it out to the end of class." And for the most part, it really worked. I'm sure there were some, that I missed that they had it secretly, but not the experience now that teachers are having with the cell phones and the misfortune and so forth. As a parent, I would not have wanted the kids to take their phones to school, but then with them like being in different directions after school, different things going on, and the bus and not getting the bus, then we were like, okay, have the phone. But so as a part of the iPhone Apple cult, I was like, with the phone, you can go in and kind of like change the settings and lock different things for different parts and times of the day. So I thought it was really smart. And I was like, oh, so you're gonna take it to school, but I'm gonna lock it to where you can only call mom or dad, text mom or dad. And then every day, my oldest, I kept getting alerts saying, can you give me permission to use this app? Permission. I'm like, who keeps asking you to do this? And he's like, it's my teacher. And I was like, I can't believe this. And so she's like, please, open it for him. I promise I'll keep an eye out for him on the phone. But so it's like, I feel like it's probably like if you can't fight them, join them. And so it's like, so how do I, if they're going to have in their hand, how do I keep them engaged in class? And so they use it for different activities. But it was like, as a parent, I was trying to shut all that down. And then she's like, no, we need it. But I was like, look, it's on you, ma'am.
Right.
I
So we
tried.
actually we got a couple comments. So one comment is like it says with our success rate in preparing our children to compete, he says in this MAGA climate where forces are trying to dumb down America's students as it relates to Black history, do our children understand the importance of having American history told accurately? And are the teachers' hands tied in this area here locally? Now, I say this is one of the reasons it's great to be in Clayton County because
I mean, not to necessarily be on the negative side, but I don't think that we were ever getting the proper history. And I think that you were always, as a parent, going to have to supplement that for your children. So, I mean, just my own personal education experience, very skewed. As far as being taught, proper history, being able to delve and have, because who's writing the books? So if we're not putting books that are written by with multiple perspectives and perspectives of African Americans, Black people, to give Black history. I don't think they were ever gonna really get it, but that's just my thought.
I think I can add Clayton County is inclusive. We celebrate everyone's history. And I mean, we're going through Hispanic Heritage Month right now, and we're celebrating that history, and everyone is involved. As far as African American history, we celebrate that too. I can just think of during Black History Month, the students do projects. They learn about a particular famous African American. But yes, there are standards that we have to follow, but we also, like I said, we celebrate everyone's history.
Yeah. I don't think it has ever been an issue for the years that I was teaching to, you know, be able to teach our kids. But I do know that I do feel as parents, we also have a responsibility of everything cannot lie on the school system. And I know like our kids and the cousins and stuff like that, they're in our house putting together plays about Juneteenth. So these are things that we just did at home to make sure that the history that we want them to know. And I think, we're all African American on this particular panel. And I know we can say that as we raise our children, there are conversations that we have to have with our kids that maybe other cultures don't have to have. So we're coming from a particular perspective anyway. And sometimes we have to explain to our kids why we have to have this particular conversation with them and, take it from a historical standpoint, things like that. So I would say to parents, because, I want to continue to engage this conversation with parents, that don't put it all on the school system, to make sure that what you want your kids to know, be intentional about telling them at home and doing the research. And I know when we grew up, we were like looking at Eyes on the Prize, and I keep wondering, where are my Eyes on the Prize DVDs? Because I want to show them to my kids and things like that. And we had after school shows on TV that talked about Martin Luther King as a young child and things like that. Just want to pivot back to the I have a couple points on here with the cell phones. It said, one person said it's a double-edged sword. Teachers are now asking scholars to pull out their phones to participate in Kahoot and other apps and similar during learning, and it opens the doors to create distractions. So it's like, have it for one point and then, tell them to put it away. It's hard once they take it out to put it away. And they also said, like, if they don't participate, they lose points or can't participate in activity that would give them a brain break. So those were the comments that was made. So, ladies, we all have this journey that we've taken with these kids in school. And what would be one piece of advice that you would want to give parents as a parent yourself?
Yes, I would say parents, be as supportive to the teacher as possible. Become that teacher's friend. And not
That's
saying you have
good.
to with everything, because a lot of times the teacher isn't right. Sometimes your child isn't right. And you have to hear both sides of the story and make your own judgment. And always be your child's advocate. In any case, be your child's advocate. Because kids have to be taught to not disrespect the teacher. Kids think that if something is not right or the teacher didn't say something right, they have a right to correct it. And when you tell them to be their advocate, that's what they assume. But parents, you have to teach them how to advocate on pen and paper, and bring it to you so that you can handle those conflicting situations when it comes to the teacher and the student. But parents, be involved. The more you involve, the less your child is likely to give trouble in the school, in the classroom, with the teacher. They know you're communicating. They're less likely. If they know that that teacher has your cell number, they can call you at any time, they're less likely to engage in negative behaviors. So I say stay involved, connect with that teacher, become that teacher's friend.
That's good.
I want to piggyback off of what Ms. Roundtree said because I totally agree. And I can say, as for Ms. Roundtree, when she brought her grandson to our school, we were all glad to see her. It was like a family member coming back home. And that's because she had developed that relationship with us and we had worked together. If she thought that something didn't go quite right, she just brought it to us in a nice way and we talked about it. And that's what adults are supposed to do. So I think, like she said, developing that relationship and working together, because it's got to be a team effort.
Yep.
I think one of the things that I actually was just having this conversation with my husband this morning about the value of education, and I think what value you place on education. And so, as parents, to be engaged, a lot of times you'll notice that it's like if you a good example, if beginning of the school year they put up a school list, I'm not buying all that stuff, I'm not doing all these things, I'm not getting all those things. But it's like, so when you say that in front of your kids, what do they think now about the school supplies? What do they think about how you feel about school and take on the attitude that you have towards school? And so while, as a parent, even as an educator, I may not always agree with things that are happening in school, the way things are going in school, it's still the value of education. And so perhaps you may not be using that algebra later on in life, but it is about the expanding of your mind. It's about you learning how you learn. So when you want to learn if you decide you want to go to trade school, you still have to learn how to use those particular tools. You still have to go through those processes. If you do become a plumber, you're not necessarily going to college. You still have to learn how you learn best, how you take in the same information that everybody else takes in, because everybody does not consume it the same. And so when you don't talk about the value of education, when you don't model the value of education for your kids, so even those simple things that you think don't really mean that much, but your kids are, they're unfortunately, they're always listening and picking up on the things that you do and how you carry yourself. So I think the advice as a parent is to value education. You may not think that everything they're learning in school is accurate or being taught accurately, or may not agree with, how it's being taught, but you have to have that value for education so that your child will be like, okay, I'm, expanding my mind. I'm learning to think. I'm learning to think for myself, to think independently as well, so that the process of education continues outside of those, 12 years of school, and that you're always growing. As even if you say, I want to be an entrepreneur, you still have to learn how to run that business. So learning is forever. And it's like, it's cliche that we say that, but at the same time, it's like, if you don't value education, you don't think you need to learn. Then you don't grow as a person. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, everything you all said was dead on. And I just want to piggyback. One of the things that I hear sometimes from parents is, oh, he or she is not a good test taker. I wasn't a good test taker. And what I would like for parents to consider is that it's about the information. So if they're not if they haven't been able to excel on a particular test, it's not so much that they're not a good test taker. Let's look at other options, because what skill set do they need to learn? That's why one of the school systems where I taught, they had the AVID program. Oh my gosh, how I loved AVID, because they taught those test taking skills and just how to really dive into the material, different note taking and different ways of looking at materials. So we as parents have to not accept that they're not a good test taker. Is how do we need to give the information to our child so that they can give back what is being asked of them, because I don't know of any profession that you can go into that you don't have to take a test. So we need to actually, and we can talk about too many tests and all this, but we need to understand that every career, every profession that I know of, if we want to make a career out of it, comes with taking a test. So let's pull back on they're just not good test takers and say, well, how do I need to give this information, and how do I need to work with my teacher and say, hey, can he or she stay after school with you and get this and that, and so they'll be more successful when they have to take tests. And definitely making sure that we have a relationship with our teachers. Let me tell you, not so much middle and high school, but oh goodness, I love my elementary school teachers. I am still their friends. I still have all their cell phone numbers in my phone. We'll call them up periodically or send them a text just to say hello, how you doing? Miss Nelson, Miss Hurdle. Oh my gosh. I love those ladies. They took such great care of our kids. So we can, as parents, have wonderful relationships with our teachers and make sure that our kids excel if we are intentional about it. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for coming on with me tonight. I hope that what we have shared will help some other parents that may be going through some struggles with their school. And I absolutely believe that we must pay attention to our school system, and we must do our part in working with our children if we expect for our county as a whole to go to the next level. It really is right here with the school system. And even in Dr. Smith's absence tonight, I think he would agree with me with that. So with that being said, thank you all so much for being on tonight, and everyone have a great evening. And if you need any assistance in this realm, feel free to reach out to me. And if you want to connect with any of these ladies, I'm sure they won't have a problem with that also. You all have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you.